In Argentina, the presidential election campaign enters its final stage ahead of Sunday's ballot. In Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu received U.S. President Joe Biden in Tel Aviv hours after the bombing on Al-Hilal Baptist Hospital, causing the death of hundreds of Palestinians. In China, the Third Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation opened with the presence of several world leaders. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Argentina entered the final stage of the campaign for the presidential elections to be held this Sunday. This Tuesday, Argentina's Minister of Economy and presidential candidate Sergio Massa held a massive rally in Buenos Aires province on Peronist Loyalty Day. Massa intends to maintain the officialist union for the homeland heading the executive in spite of the inflationary crisis. The minister is convinced that the worst is over and that if he wins, he will renegotiate the agreement with the International Monetary Fund to free himself from the policies of the financial entity that is forcing the country into recession to pay the $44 billion debt contracted by the government of the liberal Mauricio Macri. The Peronist leader's main opponents are the right-wing populist Javier Milei and the main opposition coalition United for Change. In Barbados, the government of Venezuela and sectors of the opposition signed partial agreements to guarantee the well-being of the Venezuelan people and political convergence. These agreements take place within the framework of the resumption of the dialogues between the Venezuelan government and the so-called United Platform. It is about the signing of two political agreements with the objective of guaranteeing the understanding and peace of the nation, as well as rejecting any form of violence and actions that attempt against the sovereignty of the country. In this way, the government of Venezuela reaffirms its willingness to maintain dialogues as has been reiterated on several occasions by the Venezuelan head of state, Nicolás Maduro. In this context, the head of the delegation of the government of Venezuela, Jorge Rodriguez, cataloged the dialogue as a historic event for the country.
We have signed these agreements on a day that I do not hesitate to call historic, because it is the first step on the road in the desire that all Venezuelans have that the sanctions, real people killing bombs against our people, that the unjustified aggressions that affect especially the most vulnerable, that affect our children, our grandparents, our women, those sanctions that have attacked us socially, economically, in our lives, in the daily life of each one of us, be progressively lifted. This is the first step of a much broader agreement that is in full evolution of its construction and implementation.
Likewise, the head of the Venezuelan government delegation, Jorge Rodriguez, said that with the signing of these agreements, both parties are also committed to the peace in country.
It is auspicious to say that those who in the past called for violence, called for sanctions, called for activities outside the Book of All, which is the Constitution, are today signing with us a partial agreement where we all commit ourselves for peace, where we all commit ourselves to build a climate of political tolerance. We all also commit ourselves to respect the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, to respect the electoral laws, to respect the electoral power, the National Electoral Council that was recently chosen by consensus for the National Assembly. We all commit ourselves to respect the electoral results, and we all commit ourselves to settle our political and social issues by the only way that this Constitution establishes as legitimate, legal, and efficient.
For his part, the head of the delegation of the United Platform of Venezuela, Gerardo Blight, affirmed that the signing of the agreements contributes to the construction of a better country.
It is one more step on the road, an important one. All Venezuelans who aspire and want a change, We must build and we must contribute with the materialization that is being signed today, and be together in every voting center, in every town, in every city of the country, watching vigilantly to guarantee that the will of each one of us is respected and fulfilled. The negotiation process is not paralyzed. The negotiation process continues within the framework of the Memorandum of Understanding we signed in Mexico City to develop the entire agenda contained in that Memorandum of Understanding. It is the route to achieve the well-being of the Venezuelan people, an inclusive democracy, and a culture of tolerance and political coexistence.
In this regard, Gerardo Blythe thanked the international community for participating in dialogues and the government of Barbados for hosting the meeting this Tuesday.
We are grateful for the facilitation that the Kingdom of Norway has provided and will continue to provide for this process. We are grateful for the support and accompaniment of our international allies and the entire international community, because it is very important for us, Venezuelans, to maintain this common effort and to make history by building a future together. We also thank the government of Barbados for having been our host for the signing of this agreement.
Meanwhile, the facilitator of the Kingdom of Norway, Dag Nylander, congratulated the commitment of the parties involved for the satisfactory development of the dialogues.
I am hopeful that the agreements to be signed today will contribute to what the parties have agreed as the central objective of this process: clear rules for political and social coexistence in Venezuela. In that sense, I would like to congratulate the members of the two delegations for their commitment to this process. In particular, I would like to highlight the efforts of the two heads of delegation, Jorge Rodriguez and Gerardo Blythe. Although overcoming polarization and confrontation may be an arduous task, the will demonstrated by the two parties in recent weeks illustrates what can be achieved when all are united for the well-being of the Venezuelan people.
The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, also stated his opinion on the agreements reached in Barbados. On his social media X, the president said, "In every circumstances, we have always sought dialogue. This road has not been easy, but thanks to the conscience and strength of our heroic people, little by little we are moving forward with the signing of this agreement. We are taking the first step towards the full lifting of all sanctions, the progressive recovery of social welfare, economic growth, the consolidation of peace and democracy within the framework of full sovereignty and national independence. Long live the people. Victory." Let's take now a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. In Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu received U.S. President Joe Biden in Tel Aviv hours after the bombing on Al-Hil Baptist Hospital causing the death of hundreds of Palestinians. The visit supports the indiscriminate attacks against civilians by Israel against the Palestinian region of Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu expressed his gratitude to the U.S. President for his visit and said that this demonstrates his deep commitment to Israel, to the future of the Jewish people, and to the Jewish state. Meanwhile, Biden told his Israeli counterpart that the U.S. will guarantee that Israel has everything it needs to defend itself. On early Wednesday, Israeli forces bombed a bakery, which was a shelter for Palestinian refugees. The place was located in Nusayrat camp, southern Gaza City. Tel Aviv's regime hasn't stopped its attacks on the Palestinian population despite the international community rejection following the attack on Baptist Hospital. Organization groups and leaders from all over the world condemned the violent attacks and the massacre perpetrated against the Al-Ahli Arab Baptist Hospital by the Israeli army. The World Health Organization condemned the act, calling for immediate protection of civilians and adequate health care. Meanwhile, countries such as Venezuela, Cuba, and Chile described the massacre as an inhumane and unjustifiable act and urgently demanded an immediate ceasefire and immediate end to the flagrant violations of international humanitarian law. Similarly, the president of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, stated that the attack in a hospital where women, children, and innocent civilians are receiving treatment is just a sign of the lack of the most basic human values. The action was also condemned by the French President Emmanuel Macron and the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Gaza has been under Israeli siege for more than a week in response to a deadly incursion by Hamas, the Islamist extremist group that controls the coastal enclave home to 2.2 million people. Meanwhile, hospitals are struggling to treat the wounded throughout the territory, operating with electricity and water shortages.
The enemy that threatens these hospitals in the eyes of the world does not act quietly, does not take deterrent measures, and does not take decisive measures against this enemy. The enemy used to receive a message of reassurance and message of permission to bomb hospitals. This matter was complete that day in this brutal massacre, which we have not heard about in today's world, but which we heard about in those ancient times that tell the stories of brutality and fascism that this occupation represents today.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas called the deadly blast at a Gaza City hospital that killed hundreds a horrifying war massacre that cannot be ignored or allowed to pass without accountability. Abbas made his remarks after cutting his visit to Jordan short and canceling a meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden, who is in Tel Aviv.
What happened tonight is a great tragedy and a horrifying war massacre that cannot be ignored or allowed to pass without accountability. In the face of this tragedy that occurred tonight, and in order to protect our people, I have decided to cut short my visit and return to my homeland to be among my people in this great ordeal. I have also agreed with our brothers in Jordan and Egypt to cancel the scheduled summit in Amman today with President Biden. Numerous international decisions have been taken to protect our people, but they have not been implemented because the United States does not want to enforce them. This aggression against our people must stop, and these crimes must come to an end. We will not allow another catastrophe in the 21st century, and we will not accept the displacement of our people once again. Our people will remain steadfast on their homeland, and we will not leave, we will not leave, and we will not leave.
Meanwhile, in New York, the State of Palestine observer at the United Nations, Riyad Mansour, had this to say.
We, as Arab group, as you see, all of us, united, outraged by this massacre that has taken place, committed by the Israeli forces against a hospital, the Lutheran hospital, in the Gaza Strip, in which, according to the initial figures, about 500 civilians have been torn apart and massacred in this outrageous, illegal crime committed by the Israeli forces against our people in the Gaza Strip. We condemn this action in the strongest possible terms, and we hold Israel responsible for this massacre, this crime, and those responsible for this crime should face justice and should face accountability.
Palestinian United Nations Ambassador Jiran Mansour said they were all outraged by a deadly strike on a Gaza hospital and blamed Israel, which says a Palestinian militant group was responsible.
Had the Security Council shouldered its responsibility yesterday and stopped the fighting yesterday, stopped the war, the aggression, the crime against our people yesterday, then we would have been able to have those 500 killed still alive and with us. So the Security Council has to wake up, and we will not relent nor spare any effort that will stop us from going after the Security Council and all components of the UN, including the Secretary General, not only to condemn this crime, and they should, but also to have an immediate ceasefire to save lives of Palestinians, and to save lives across the board.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English. There you will be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. On Wednesday, the Third Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation opened in China with the presence of several world leaders. At the opening of the forum, Chinese President Xi Jinping delivered a speech in which he stressed that the initiative was born with the aspiration to promote connectivity in politics, infrastructure, trade, and people-to-people financing with all countries, so as to reject new impetus into the world economy, create new opportunities for global development, and build a new platform for international economic cooperation. In this context, representatives from more than 130 countries, including Russian President Vladimir Putin, attended the meeting, which marked the 10th anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative for International Cooperation, an initiative that has generated more than $2 trillion in contracts around the world. Russian President Vladimir Putin stressed the benefits of the Belt and Road Initiative for strengthening cooperation and trade relations between the countries of the world in a climate of equality and mutual respect. On the first day of the Third Belt and Road Forum, Chinese President Xi Jinping held a round of bilateral meetings with leaders from all over the world. The president met on Tuesday with the presidents of Papua New Guinea, Kazakhstan, Hungary, Ethiopia, and Chile. Xi Jinping expressed his satisfaction at receiving his old friend Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, president of Kazakhstan, a relationship that he described as solid, stable, and vibrant, which favors the development of both countries. On the other hand, the president of Chile, Gabriel Boric, declared that the spirit of collaboration for the construction of a new world order based on peace and harmony of people is being highly valued. Let's briefly review what this forum is all about.
The Belt and Road Forum represents a concept proposed in 2013 by Chinese President Xi Jinping. It promotes global interconnectivity in the areas of economy, trade, infrastructure, and also in the human and cultural fields. Over the past decade, over 150 countries and more than 30 international organizations have signed documents within the Belt and Road Initiative framework. So far, representatives of over 140 countries and 30-plus international organizations, including state leaders, heads of international organizations, ministerial officials, and representatives of the business sector, academia, and non-governmental organizations have confirmed they will attend the event. Apart from the opening ceremony of the third BRF, three high-level forums will be held simultaneously for in-depth discussions on connectivity, green development, and the digital economy. Additionally, six thematic forums will be conducted in parallel under the topics of trade, connectivity, people-to-people bonds, think tank exchanges, clean Silk Road, subnational cooperation, and maritime cooperation. The forum is the most important diplomatic event hosted by China so far this year, and the most significant celebration for the 10th anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative.
The treasures of Notre Dame Cathedral, which were spared from the fire in 2019, are on display at the Louvre Museum in Paris. These objects of worship are an opportunity to discover these witnesses of history, which were previously kept in the sacristy. The reliquary of the Holy Crown of Thorns, a solid silver Madonna and Child, and priestly vestments are just some of the 120, mainly liturgical objects on display. The exhibition Treasures of Notre Dame, from its origins, the Viollet-le-Duc, will be open until the end of January. We have come to the end of this newspaper. From you can find these and many other stories on our website, TeleSURenglish.net. And also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.